Let's get right into it. Welcome to this exclusive Up Go Wise masterclass. Today, we're diving into Sun Tzu's The Art of War. But listen, we're not looking at this as a manual for aggression. No, this is a masterclass in where your force leaks. It's not a book about violence. It's a book about waste. It trains a colder, significantly more precise sight. Sun Tzu isn't asking you to be aggressive. He's asking for placement. Because before the sword even moves, the map has already spoken.
So, let's start with a pretty stark truth. Your life isn't short, but your front, it's way too wide. The reality is you're not losing because you have a weak desire. You're losing force through unmanaged fronts. Just let that sink in for a second, right in your chest, not as a sense of shame, but as a realization about your own structure. The first correction we absolutely need to make today isn't about giving a louder, harder effort. It's about creating a cleaner field.
I actually want you to ask yourself right now, honestly, where are you confusing strain with proof of your own worth? Where are you patting yourself on the back for staying exposed? You know, we so often enter every single battle, we answer every single summons, and we actually think this constant depletion is some noble sign of devotion. Well, it isn't. You cannot heal by simply opening more gates.
And here comes the reality slap of Sun Tzu's text. Every open front drains your attention long before strategy even begins. You call it discipline, right? But the mechanism at play here is just unmanaged exposure. That is the hidden cost. It's not the enemy causing it, and actually, scratch that, it's not the workload either. The real cost is your habit of constantly granting access to your energy.
Okay, moving right into Act 1, the hidden cost, unmasking exhaustion. We really need to contrast the exhausted mind that worships loud, frantic effort against the strategic mind that fiercely protects its force. This split is brutal. One self says, enter everything. Strong people can endure all fronts. But the other self, the strategic self, says, choose the ground, refuse the unnecessary fight. The exhausted mind tries to solve a bad position simply with more effort, while the strategic mind redesigns the entire field before taking a single step.
The thing is, exhaustion is a deception. It mimics motion, it mimics worth, but it's really just noise because you've lost your position. Sun Tzu knew that the loudest force is very often the weakest. It has to spend noise because it lacks shape. Noise mimics motion, motion mimics worth, and worth mimics safety. And then, your body ends up paying the ultimate tax for that massive self-deception.
You literally have to physically track this. Notice where your jaw locks, or where your stomach completely drops when you enter a bad front with a fake smile. Think of it as blood cost accounting, measuring the actual physical toll. The face lies, sure, but the body? The body always reports the truth. It stores every single forced yes and turns each open loop into heat. We have to stop calling a blind response bravery, because uninformed courage, it is terribly, terribly expensive.
Which brings us to Act 2, the descent, the architecture of restraint. I want you to picture a cold stone fortress. In this fortress, a shut gate isn't passivity, and it certainly isn't weakness. It is an active, deeply designed restraint that absorbs chaos. Imagine that fortress at dusk. Outside, a battering ram is just pounding the stone, again and again. The attackers are spending themselves, sweating, burning through all their energy. But inside, no hero is running frantically to the wall. No blade is even lifted. The gate simply stays shut. The stone just absorbs the blow. Now, that is stored force.
Self-knowledge acts as your strategic armor here. It requires you to pinpoint exactly which gates you keep opening just to prove you're a good person. Can you feel pressure and not immediately treat it as a command? The deepest enemy might not even oppose you. It might recruit your pride. It will praise your availability and call your overreach love. Self-knowledge means recognizing that hunger for approval for what it really is.
As we emphasize in the Up Go Wise practice, we leak a massive amount of energy when we try to rescue absolutely everyone. And let's be real, that's often just approval hunger wearing armor. Just notice the contrast between these two paradigms. The old paradigm literally spends force to earn peace, but the strategic professional, they build peace through structure, and then they spend their force very, very rarely. You aren't tired because life is intense. You're tired because your boundaries completely lack design.
Let's shift gears now into Act 3, the turn, designing your inner architecture.
Listen closely to this. You are not tired because your soul is weak. You're tired because your boundary system is completely improvised, and improvised boundaries are bound to fail under pressure. They rely on your mood, They beg for courage after the enemy has already crashed through the gates. Real architecture just does not work that way. A fortress is designed long before the siege. A threshold is chosen way before the stampede ever begins.
So we need to categorize these fronts so you can stop bleeding energy all over the place. First, you have the public front, what genuinely needs a visible answer today. Then you have the private front, what keeps fighting inside you long after the room goes quiet. And finally, the strategic front, what must be shaped before the action even starts. A vague front will eat you alive in the fog. You have to name it cleanly.
I want you to practice one key refinement this week. Pick one pointless explanation or one vague commitment and close that gate with absolute command. Seriously, do not try to solve all your fronts today. That's just that same old exhaustion pattern sneaking back in. Choose your tactic. Withdraw if the field is rotten. Delay if the timing feels false. Clarify if the enemy is confusion. And commit only if the ground is truly yours.
When you pause and let your blood cool down, that isn't numbness. Not at all. It is the return of command, placing yourself right on superior terrain. This is what we call command quiet. It's the profound calm that comes from having selected fronts. Think about it like sports. The absolute best player doesn't chase every single movement on the field. They read the spacing. They arrive before the play becomes obvious to anyone else. They literally make speed look calm.
And finally, Act 4, the resolution, winning before the battle. The huge payoff for this masterclass is realizing that the highest skill isn't winning some massive, dramatic fight. It's shaping the encounter so the fight never even touches your skin. Sun Tzu's great offense to our modern, hyperactive ego is that he makes drama look completely unintelligent. He makes constant struggle look unplanned and messy. He praises the victory that barely bleeds.
You've got to be ruthlessly vigilant against your deepest enemy, your own pride. Because your pride will constantly try to recruit you into unnecessary performance. We have to employ an anti-drama strategy. We remove the glamour from the conflict. Your ego prefers a highly visible struggle. It wants an audience for its restraint. But the strategic mind, it measures success by a reduction in battles, not by visible intensity.
Remember, Sun Tzu doesn't make you harder or louder or more aggressive. He makes you significantly less available to chaos. The crowd sees action, sure, but the master sees the angle. The crowd praises the effort, but the master sees the hidden cost. When the body is stormed, postpone the march. When the map is unclear, do not worship speed.
This whole philosophy of refinement means you don't become better by just doing more. You become better by selecting better and closing gates quietly. This is the core practice you need to take away. Notice the gate that you keep flinging open just to prove your worth. Name the front cleanly, without any ornament or defense, and then close what wastes your energy.
And do this without an announcement. Because honestly, a gate closed just for applause is still an open gate. Let the proof be the energy, the focus, the blood you no longer spend. Protect your peace so it can fully serve you. That way, when force is finally required, it arrives clean, focused, and with a razor-sharp edge.
To really access your own personal growth map and continue this deep internal transformation, make sure you dive into the philosophy at upgowise.com. This is exactly where you cross over from just recognizing Sun Tzu's theory to actually designing and mastering your own inner architecture.
I'll leave you with this final provocative truth to carry with you all day long. Win before you even move. Don't wait for the shouting or the pressure or the deadline. Design your thresholds right now. Refuse the unnecessary fight entirely, and let your stored force be your ultimate strategy.